Welcome back to Big Fish in the Middle Kingdom, part of the Migration Media Network. I'm Brendan Davis, your host, and this week's guest is Igor Torgeson. Igor is a writer, actor, and comedian from Los Angeles. We are old friends and colleagues, having both taught at the New York Film Academy in Los Angeles with 6 years of overlap. He is still teaching there. I caught up with him when he was here for a summer program recently at Beijing Film Academy, and it was really great to get to hang out with him. We had so much fun recording this. This episode is a lot looser in a few places than normal, and I left many outtakes in on purpose this time. It is definitely a little more behind the scenes in a few places than I would otherwise air, but there is so much funny in the margins that I really didn't want to lose it. I think that Igor had a really great hot take on Beijing, being that it was his very first time here. He brought fresh eyes to things that Beijingers often take for granted, such as the ubiquitous tourist trap attractions. Ultimately, we talk mostly in one way or another about communication, though. Igor is a master of it, and I think he had some real kind of level 3 insights on how the cultural differences assert themselves in day-to-day life here. I also get a chance to share what I think is the very best advice that you could give any person pursuing a difficult dream. It's something that I used to tell acting students in LA when I was teaching them basic filmmaking skills for self-defense. Igor ends up talking about how the shifting cultural dynamics of the U.S. are shaping the Hollywood industry in ways that will have repercussions for the images that we end up putting out into the world, and I think it will be very interesting to see how things shift around here in China, too. One other Igor note is that while he was here, we used my equipment to also record an episode of a comedy podcast that Igor helps to produce and host back in LA called Tell It Anyway. On that show, we riff about crazy stories that have happened to us that we don't know if we should tell, but we decide to tell it anyway. I'll let you know when that will air. It will probably be a while, but it was really a blast, and I'm excited for you to hear that as well. Lastly, in my world, by this time next week, I should have a really big announcement related to this podcast, but until it's 100% a reality, I don't want to jinx it, so stay tuned for that. For now, though, please enjoy my interview with Igor Torgeson. So I'm here with Igor Torgeson, who has done a podcast before. Hi, Igor.
Yeah, I've done at least two.
At least two.
At least two.
Well, I'm glad to have you here, man. And the traditional first question, we'll start with that, and then we'll unpack why we're laughing with such familiarity here in a moment. But
because it's so much fun.
It is. You
guys should be here.
This is the way to do it.
Yeah.
Traditional first question, please tell us the short-ish version of who you be, where you're from, and for you, why China, and then we'll unpack it.
All right. Do we normally do it in that order, or can I do it in the order of my choice?
Free range answer.
Okay.
Wonder where you will.
So yes, hello. My name is Igor Torgeson. I'm here in Beijing. I have been sent by my employer, the New York Film Academy, to teach at a summer workshop in filmmaking at the Beijing Film Academy, which is not confusing in any way.
Sure.
But who am I? I am an actor and writer and filmmaker from Los Angeles. I'm originally from Neenah, Wisconsin, which is difficult to find on a map.
Okay.
But since then, I've lived in a lot of places around the United States. I lived in the Washington, D.C. area because I went to college there. I've lived in Texas because reasons. And
because Texas happens.
Yeah, if you get through like 50 years of life and you haven't lived in Texas, you're probably doing it wrong. And I have lived in Boston, Massachusetts because I went to graduate school there.
Oh, okay. There's a recurring Boston theme on this show I'll get to in a minute. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a whole thing.
All right.
But I totally, you're such an improv guy that you had to stop and wait, let's explore that.
It's like, yes, Boston, tell me more.
Yeah, yes, and I interrupted your flow, Igor. Please.
There was no flow. I was done.
No, you weren't done. Okay, so we left you at Boston for grad school, and then what happened?
Oh, we're going chronological now.
Ish, or whatever you're going.
Okay.
You're going. I'm here.
Yeah, I went to Boston for graduate school in film. I was partially through my my thesis film. Like I had finished the edit and I was waiting for sound. And a real good friend of mine wanted to move to Los Angeles, and she had convinced me to go with her. And without making the story too complicated, we were going to stop in Nevada along the way and help her mom open a bed and breakfast. So we broke our leases, packed up a truck, left, and things went bad. And it ended up with us being in LA with no jobs, no money, and no place to go.
That sounds not at all complicated, but kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so. So that story is probably way better than the movie you're working on in grad school.
I guess
Maybe. No. Sorry, you still you still bear the scars.
Oh man, I don't know how to tell the story in a way that it makes it sound any.
You don't have to. You don't have to.
No, it's just one of those things where it's. Okay, so I'm going to go way back. But it's not really way back because we're just talking about graduate school. But the point is, in graduate school, my friends and I came up with this phrase that we call, it's never the waitress you expect.
Okay, all right.
And that is because one of us, I'm not going to say who it was, had a crush on a waitress at a place that we went to all the time. And then later met a different waitress that worked at the same place at a different bar, and that's who this person hooked up with.
Oh, I see. All
right.
And
so we're like, it's never the waitress you expect.
Got it.
But you can use that for lots of things. So our anticipation was to go to Nevada and work for a while and earn some money and get to LA. That is not what happened at all, because it is never the waitress you expect.
I like that framework. I might have to find it. You know what? I know there's a Beijing version of this. You have been here long enough. We were trading some stories over lunch, and then as we're shooting the breeze before we started recording this conversation for the sake of people, and you already have what I was calling like some level 2 and 3 insights for the first trip to China. I was fairly impressed. I mean. So let me give a little backstory. I will have done an intro, as you know, because you've done this before, and I told you, but for 2 good reasons. But Igor, you and I, we know each other from the world famous New York Film Academy in Los Angeles, of course, because
which again is not confusing in any
not
way.
Confusing in any way. It's anyone who I've ever mentioned. That's where I worked. But yeah, we're both film and TV film guys who taught there, like as you do in LA. When you're not currently doing it, you're teaching.
Yeah. If you're lucky enough.
If you're lucky enough to claw your way into one of those choice gigs. So, so you came here and you're doing a gig that I myself did kind of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It's basically 2 years ago to the day. I would have been I was not alternately doing a podcast. I was probably at Beijing Film Academy sweating my butt off.
Yeah.
So you're here. You've been here right at a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so let's do this because for you, I was telling you before we got rolling, and for the sake of somebody who maybe hasn't heard, is not a completist and hasn't heard all 78 episodes of my show.
Maybe they should start.
Maybe they should start
listening.
They should start. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I mean, if they're hearing me say that, they're already listening, so I don't really know what the point of that is, but I'm trying to help you.
I need all the help I can get. So it's funny because people say that I talk too much on the show. I don't know what they're saying. I don't know what they're talking about. Hi, James. Shouting out to one guy. That's for all of those of you who've said that to me in a polite way. So, but back to my guest. So, Igor.
Wait, we're still doing this?
We're doing this. We're actually still recording.
I was already going over there.
You are. You're off mic. Which you know because you know this. I hope this is as entertaining for people at home as it is for me. I mentioned how much I edit, and then I explained the process of editing to Igor, and he's looking at me blankly. And we had just been talking about how he could have had a career as a motion picture editor. And I know him from teaching editing, and I'm explaining in detail how I edit the podcast. And he's also, I mentioned that he's co-produced a podcast for years, so he knows. He knows.
I'm trying to be nice.
You are being nice. So I have a feeling. Fortunately, though, look. So you are actually a professional, funny guy. No pressure. Writer, actor, comedian, improv, comic. And you actually have trained, but you do this. I mean, you do this in Los Angeles. You do this in a place where people do it for real. And so I think it's going to be fun and silly and goofy to have this conversation this way. But so why film? Let's just kind of start there. We'll talk about kind of what motivated you toward filmmaking and stuff. We'll get ourselves. We'll jump around a bit because that's how we'll do it. Let's start there. Right. Why storytelling? Why that?
That's an interesting question, and I feel like that's something that students ask a lot, which seems strange because they're in film school. So why are they asking me why I make movies? But this is such a terrible answer. I'm sorry, everyone.
Well, it took me 3 minutes to ask the question. So, take your time.
No, I already know it's a terrible answer. So, and the terrible answer is I feel like if somebody is making film or if they're making video or TV, because it's all the same fucking thing, you do it because that's what you have to do, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's and it's going to sound like a cop-out answer, but that's the thing. Like, if you are in the business of storytelling, it's because you love stories. And you love telling stories, you love watching stories, you love reading stories. And that's what you want to do. And so I think it starts from the very beginning. And this has been true for me with several different kinds of art, but it starts from me being a kid and going to a high school play and seeing the older kids doing the play and thinking, that's what I want to do.
Okay.
I want to be that person up there.
Nice.
And so, you know, we are of an age of where some of the earliest movies we remember are Indiana Jones or Star Wars, and all the movies that now that we're adult movie critics we make fun of. But but the fact is that...
Or they're constantly remaking.
Right, because nobody has any good ideas, apparently. No, those are good ideas. Nobody has any new ideas, apparently. Right. But yeah, that's the thing. You know, watching those movies as a kid and seeing that fanfare and it all coming up and wanting to be the person who made that or who was in it.
Yeah.
Because it's all about stories and getting to be somebody else and imagining the world through somebody else's eyes.
Where did you do your undergrad, and was it film arts related?
No.
I'm guessing no. That's why I thought that might be a good question.
I did my undergrad at the George Washington University in beautiful downtown Washington, D.C. I've learned to always say that because people think it's the one in St. Louis, and it's not.
I didn't know there was one in St. Louis, but I know the D.C.
Yeah, that's Washington University. It doesn't matter.
Got it.
So, I did my undergrad at George Washington. My major was journalism.
Okay.
Because I thought it might set me up for something I might want to do. Mm-hmm. Like, I like the idea of being a reporter traveling across the world and meeting new people and,
sure.
and still telling stories.
Sure.
But when I was at George Washington University, I got involved with the campus improv and sketch group that then was called the No Time Players.
All right.
And the semester that I joined, the people who had been the No Time Players moved to New York and became involved with the People's Improv Theater and a bunch of other stuff that is now a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
And so then we remade it and became Recess, which is still the sketch and improv group at George Washington University. And so a lot of those people that I worked with are people that I still try to work with now and who are working in the film industry. And thankfully, because I have very talented friends, they're doing very well and producing their own TV shows and selling shows, and one of our guys is on Westworld right now. And
no kidding. You know, several of my friends who listen to the show are big Westworld fans, as are millions of other people.
Yes,
so who's your friend?
So Ptolemy Slocum plays one of the tech guys, Sylvester.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, who had kind of a small part, but a fun part in the first season, a much bigger part in the second season.
Nice. I you know what? I'm not into the second season yet, but I know who you're talking about. And, and I've seen the preview. I've seen all the trailers and such for this season.
Yeah, so Ptolemy, dear friend of mine, known him for years and years, was one of the first people in Recess.
Yeah.
So, so during the day, I'm studying journalism and God knows why psychology. And then when we were doing Recess, we actually had our rehearsals from 10 to midnight every night of the week.
Wow.
Because we did a completely new weekly show every Friday night at midnight.
Wow. No kidding.
Yeah, when I think about it now, it seems fucking insane.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just like, that's what
We're gonna do it. Yeah. Well, when you're driven by that, you're in college, and when you're turned on to do something like that, it's again the time passes. It's just what you do.
Yeah, and we were in college. I mean, what else were we doing? I mean, maybe I should have been studying, but
well, you know, it's overrated. So, did you go straight into grad school from your undergrad, or was there some in between, lost in the woods, finding yourself time?
It was weird. So much of things that have worked out for me has just been really stupid luck.
Yeah.
And it makes me feel bad because in general, I don't think luck is a thing. I think like you set yourself up to be ready for opportunities, and then opportunities come and you take them. But that said, I graduated from college. I was an idiot and I had a big overage on my student loan. So instead of giving it back, I was like, I'm just going to live off that for a few months.
All right.
And so I spent like 3 months without really looking for a job. Mm-hmm. And then I was in the DC area and I needed to pay rent and feed myself and stuff like that. And just by accident, I saw that there was a place that was hiring people to be writers for a TV show that wasn't a TV show, that was a TV show. But the idea was that you had to learn like a college class and then write a TV show that would teach that to college students.
Okay.
And the crazy thing was that one of the people who was founding it was also good friends with the people who started the No Time Players.
Ah, so there was like a little bit of a kind of a family connection in a way.
Yeah, so it was like we were in the same frat, but we weren't in a fraternity. But you get the idea.
Right.
So going into that, I could be like, oh yeah, I did No Time Players, and they're like, okay, great, start writing. So, and a lot of us from Recess ended up doing that, working for this place called Cerebellum, which in retrospect is crazy because it meant that, at 22, 23 years old, we were working full time writing.
Yeah. That's pretty rare.
Working as writers.
Right.
The format of the show, I don't know how helpful that was that we were doing educational writing, but they wanted us to make it entertaining and make it funny. So essentially we were working as full-time joke writers for, each of us a different amount of time, but for like a couple years.
Wow.
But that's kind of what made me want to go to film school and learn how to direct, because I'd been working as an actor all through college, and I decided I didn't want to do that anymore. I'd been writing the entire time I was writing at this job, and it got to a point a lot of times where the studio for Cerebellum was in the same building as the writer's room.
Yeah.
And so we would write a script, we'd have the script meeting, they would go down to shoot it, and more often than not, I would get a phone call at my desk where it would be the studio, and they're like, yeah, we don't know how to do this. And so then I go down to the studio and I'm like, I feel like this is really easy. You put the camera here, they come in from there, he's going to enter from there, make sure you light it like this, you're good to go.
Yeah.
And so having done that several times, I was like, maybe I should learn directing for real.
Yeah.
So yeah, that eventually led to moving to Texas because I thought I wanted to go to UT, and then not going to UT and going to Boston University instead.
Awesome. Do you need tissue or anything, or are you good?
Just itchy.
Yeah. No, I got you.
Why am I snotting everywhere?
No. You're great. I just saw your body language.
Do you want me to?
No. It's audio. See, this is audio.
They can't see that I want to put my booger on the microphone.
Yeah. I totally killed the buzzer. That could have been a funny bit.
No, that's fine.
Yeah,
I can make another booger, Brendan.
Killing organic funny bits is my superpower. Oh man,
you have so many, but they don't seem to work.
They don't. Oh shit! I got to find a way to leave this in somehow. Maybe I'll do that. Actually, somebody was saying, my girlfriend was saying, you should do like an outtakes and bloopers thing, because there's been some. This is so far we got more bloopers than we have more outtakes than intakes at this point.
I'm really trying to be good, and I'm ruining it.
No, you're great. I just have to be able to play along better.
Okay, well, the thing that we do is it's called yes.
Now, how does that work exactly?
So I'll make a suggestion like I'm putting a booger on the microphone, and you say yes, you are putting a booger on the microphone, and it smells terrible.
Right. Okay.
I'm just giving you an example.
Thank you.
You'll come up with something better.
That's very helpful. I'm going to teach you about editing. Regardless. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad we can have this kind of a free-flowing conversation, because this is something that I'm a little starved for here. As much as I love China, let's jump. We'll come way ahead. See, how's that for a segue?
Yep.
So, and not the two-wheel scooter. The reality is that as much as I love being here, obviously their cultural differences are huge. The day-to-day conversation is different with people. And, you're a breath of vaguely fresh air blowing in from the west coasterly of the U.S. direction. And so there's a very specific kind of dynamic of being in an entertainment bubble, being an industry bubble, which is part of what I love about LA, but it's also part of the thing that makes it so nice to get out of there. Mm-hmm. That's my segue into what has it been like. This is your first time to China. What was it like for you? Like you're coming out of LA, which is like, all industry all the time, basically.
Yeah.
Even if you have a more well-rounded life, you're surrounded by the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And here, you're not so much. It's kind of the opposite of that. What was it like for you rocking up into Beijing?
That is honestly almost too big of a question to answer, because it is, and I don't want to make it sound like, oh my God, it's so different. Oh, I can't handle it. But it's substantially different, and I wasn't totally unprepared.
Okay. Tell us how you prepare. Answer it however you can make it interesting and or funny.
Okay, great.
No pressure. And go.
Hey, fun fact.
Yeah.
Do you know what the least favorite thing comedians have when people find out they're comedians?
Hey, be funny.
Yeah. Yeah, that is like, oh, you're a comedian? Say something funny. Do you know what our first thought is? Fuck you.
Exactly.
I'm not your fucking monkey.
This is in the show, by the way.
Right. And you know what's also...
This is all the show.
What's ironic about that is if I actually say it, then the person's like, oh, that's great. Do another one.
Like, that's a bit... Well, look. Honestly, instead of trying to pretend like I'm Barbara Walters here, the reality is that I this is going to air, whenever it airs, right? This is probably going to air in about a month or so.
Yeah.
And there's an episode that run before this because I've already recorded it because I'm at that socket.
I thought you were like, I'm just
like
the future.
Exactly. Well, a little bit. And in that future, I'm funnier and more handsome and wealthier. But I've been talking about wanting to do maybe another show and trying to figure out the format. And I would love to do a show that's like this, only enough of a structure, there being some reason that people would want to tune into it.
Right.
But having
That's
somebody
not
that I
just
could, that's not, well, I mean, because you live in LA. So,
Right.
so like we know, I mean, you can do it by Skype, but it's not the same thing.
No,
like,
sounds weird.
It sounds, it's not the same thing. It's like a forced thing. So being able to find a format to just be able to riff on things in a hopefully interesting and entertaining way without it being too forced and without it being mechanical. So that's the tricky thing.
It's funny that you say that because I'm associated with another podcast called Tell It Anyway.
That's right.
That has a structure similar to what you're talking about, where we find people that we like who are interesting and give them kind of a vague theme and let them tell a story about that.
Okay. Well, can you give sort of a... Por ejemplo, can you give an example of how that would work?
We'll come up with a theme like it seemed like a good idea at the time.
That's right. That's what you're telling me. You're telling me off mic, yeah.
Yeah, and so we'll tell our guests ahead of time, this is your theme, seemed like a good idea at the time, and then they'll come in, and it's hosted by a great friend of mine, Jenny Josephson, and her husband, Matthew Flanagan. Sometimes I'm on it, sometimes I'm not. But Matt and Jenny will tell their own stories, and then whoever the guest or guests are will tell their stories. And it's somewhat similar to you and I right now in that it's kind of a more free-flowing conversation. Mm-hmm. But usually we get them to tell stories that maybe they shouldn't tell.
I love that organizing principle, man. That's awesome. So this is your first time in China, but you were just telling me off mic that you were prepared somewhat for this. How have you kind of prepared? What's it been like to kind of get here?
Yeah, I mean, I was prepared in a certain sense, and I was totally unprepared in a different sense. And it's teaching at the New York Film Academy in Los Angeles. A large proportion of our students are Chinese. Because it's a popular school just for students from China to come and kind of learn the American system of production and writing and all of that. So I've certainly had experience with a lot of Chinese students, and so I've kind of had some more exposure to the culture.
Right.
So coming here, I'm not totally surprised by how people are operating.
Exactly.
What I was totally unprepared for, and this is partially my fault and just the circumstances of the trip, just because of how my work had to be taken over when I left, I was kind of in a panic prepping work stuff before I left. So, like, normally if I'm going to go overseas, I'm going to do some research and learn some language and look at maps and stuff like that. And I landed in Beijing knowing nothing.
Wow.
Like... I did not know how to say anything.
Yeah.
I did not know how to read anything.
Yeah.
I did not know how to find my home on a map.
It's a steep learning curve.
And so I was just totally dependent on the staff here to keep me from dying.
That's good. Well, so far so good because here you are.
Yeah, and so and then once I got here, it pretty quickly started into prep for the programs here.
Right.
And so I didn't have a lot of time to kind of catch up on all the things that I wanted to catch up.
Yeah.
It made it a little bit easier that a couple of the people on the support staff are people that are students that used to be my students at the New York Film Academy.
Right.
So I knew them already, so that helped, and everybody was really great. So I guess what I'm saying is I kind of knew what I was getting into. I totally did not know what I was getting into. Mm-hmm. So it's been pretty much a great adventure every day because everything I see is something I've never seen before.
Nice.
Right. And so, I have kind of that first reaction that I think a lot of people from the United States have where you look around and you're like, oh my God, everything is huge.
Yeah.
Everything is huge.
Yeah, totally.
And like my dad had this old joke where he was like, there's so many people in China. If they need more room, maybe they should build a second floor.
Right.
Yeah, right. And now that I've been here, I can go back and be like, dude, they did it. They're up to like the 40th floor.
Yeah, they found a level.
Yeah. So I mean, everything is huge. There's lots of people, and just from that kind of standpoint, that took a little bit of getting used to. But it's also just kind of what led you into this was conversationally, because I don't speak Mandarin, so I'm not going to have conversations with people on the street.
Exactly.
Or the people checking me out at the grocery store, or the people bringing me food. Pretty much anybody who's Chinese.
Sure.
So, but I am going to have conversations with my students, most of whom speak my language or speak a language that I know. And I'm going to have conversations with the people on my staff. And so I was kind of prepared for like the Chinese way of conversation, where it's different. Like if you're equals, you're going to have a relatively normal conversation. If you are not equals in some sort of social way, like if you are a teacher and they are a student, then it's a totally different conversation.
Completely.
And so it has taken a little bit of getting used to the fact that if I'm talking to somebody who feels like I'm their superior in some way, the only way we have a conversation is me quizzing them.
Right. Okay.
Right.
You have to like really draw it out of them.
Yeah. So it'll be conversations like, so what'd you do yesterday? I worked. Great. Okay. What'd you work on? Just stuff for school.
Awkward silence.
Right. It's like, on the one hand, I would like to actually know, but on the other hand, at some point, I'm the creepy guy who's like, and then what happened?
Yeah, am I prying?
Yes. Do you not want to? And because I would like to be a thoughtful human being, I am then already going to self-reflection of being like, are they not telling me because they don't want me to know? Is this private information? Should I stop prying?
Exactly, yeah. Have I crossed some line that I'm unaware of?
Right. I don't want to sit here in silence.
Well, this is why, and you're right, we didn't even talk about it directly, but I don't have to because, you're a bright guy and you've done this before. exactly why I created a podcast. And I've detailed this, I've checked like five or six reasons specifically, but I always end up with a mental health exercise because for myself is part of why I do this very candidly, and it's great because, this is where I've got my handful of close friends who are either, who are bilingual Chinese or they're fellow foreigners out who I see outside of this. But this is the most conversation that I get to have, which is why I talk so much sometimes on this podcast. It's because it's conversation,
It's funny because I think I have I've reached a point with a couple of my Chinese coworkers where me being American and being direct, I have gotten to them and I said, look, you're my friend, you're my coworker, that's what we are, so we're going to talk like normal human beings.
Right.
And I think
take off the pressure of maybe there's some kind of an unspoken dance you don't know the moves here. Yeah,
and so now we can kind of just chill and talk about stuff.
You were telling me a great story that I said I'd have to remember to say on the show. What was that situation? You're trying to get some information out of the young lady.
Okay, yeah.
You needed something. I know what it is. I won't ruin it. I'll let you do it.
Okay,
you needed something, and you had this perfectly illustrates. Your insight was what I said was like level 3 level insight here.
Yeah, it's understanding, like, as an American, you need something, you get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you're like, oh shit, I need this thing. Do you have this? No. Okay, I'm going to go find it.
Right.
We are used to kind of that self-sufficiency and taking care of things.
Exactly.
And we're used to saying no.
Sure.
It doesn't mean anything. We just say no. And that's not part of the Chinese culture. And so I had learned relatively quickly that any direct question I put to somebody was going to be answered by another question.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's like, hey, how do I get to the Shichucheng subway stop? Why do you need to take the subway?
Right.
I don't need to tell you my whole fucking life story. Just tell me where the subway is.
Right.
So there was a day that I needed to clean the whiteboard in my classroom. And I went in and I talked to one of my coworkers who is this wonderfully sweet girl. And I said, hey, do you have any cleaner? And she said, what do you need cleaner for? I didn't think anything of it at that point.
That's still open-ended enough. That could be a lot of things.
Seemed like a reasonable question.
Bloodstain.
Right. So, what do you need cleaner for? I said, I would like to clean off the whiteboard, which looks like it hasn't been cleaned since 1967.
Which is very specific. Yeah, very specific request.
Okay, and she says, well, did you try water? And I said, yes, I tried water. It didn't work. That's why I'm asking you if you have anything like glass cleaner. And she said, okay, did you try hand soap from the bathroom? Which, if you think about it, is a crazy question.
Yeah.
Like, I've just specifically told you what I need, and you're like, get hand soap. The hand soap is not going to work.
Yeah.
But
that creates problems.
Right. At that moment, I understood exactly what was going on.
Yes.
And so then I just said, hey, are you just being Chinese and not telling me that you don't have any cleaner? And she stopped for a second and she was like, yes, I am. I don't have it. I can't say no.
Awesome. I love that story. I love it. That perfectly illustrates, because that's right. At lunch, we were talking about how something that they kind of teach you if you're a fresh off the boat Laowai. If you're asking for directions and you're out and about and you're either using a translator or something, if somebody doesn't know, they're still going to try to help. Helping you might be sending you the wrong way, but at least they've got you moving forward. They have you moving in a direction away from them, and they've helped. And hopefully you'll find somebody else who actually knows.
Yes.
Oh, no, make a left. But I know. Okay, just go back.
I think a good piece of advice here, which is something I've used in the States, is often if you see somebody who looks like they know where they're going, just follow that person.
That's good advice.
You may not go where you intend to, but you'll go someplace cool.
I like it. I like it. Oh, the places we'll go. Well, so your China stories are legion for being here a month. They're not quite legion, but they're pretty fun. You've actually seen a lot of touristy stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Where have you been? You've seen the sites I have not even seen a lot of stuff.
Well, it's one of those things where I'm like, I expect I will be back to China, but I don't know. So if I'm never back, I don't want to ever be home and be like, man, I could have gone to see the Beihai Park and I just didn't.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I haven't been to Beihai yet.
Okay.
But, where have I been? I have been to...
you did the jaunt around the Forbidden City, I think?
Yep, we did the Forbidden City. We did Prince Kung's Palace, kind of by accident, because we were walking past it. We did Jingshan Park. We went up to the Great Wall.
What was that like?
I think I told you earlier. It was a wonderful kind of intimate visit with like 180,000 of my closest friends.
Nice.
It was raining.
Yeah.
And there were so many people climbing the first part of the Great Wall that you took one step at a time and then waited.
Wow. Seriously.
Yeah. I mean, I can send you one of the pictures if you want to post it along with.
Yeah.
It was like, I looked down from one part of the wall onto a lower part, and I couldn't see the wall.
There's like a sea of people.
All I could see were umbrellas.
Oh, all right.
It's a cool picture, but
nice.
It's also like that's how crowded it was. So
wow.
If any of you are planning a trip to the Great Wall, my advice is, one, work out first.
Okay.
Because it's a lot of steps.
Yeah.
It's a lot of steps. But also, walk for like 3 kilometers, really thins out after that.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, apparently nobody wants to climb 3 kilometers worth of steps.
I can imagine why. Because that's 3 kilometers of walking.
Right, and they're not even...
up a wall.
They're not like regular steps.
They're like pebbles or something, right?
It's like... They're all different sizes.
Uh-huh.
They're all different angles.
So every step is a new adventure.
Yes. Great Wall is awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Go.
Okay.
It's also crazy.
How so?
There's a Kentucky Fried Chicken at the bottom.
Awesome.
With a sign that says that KFC built the wall, which makes no sense. There's a slide.
All right.
So you take a cable car to get up to the wall.
Yeah.
Then you climb more of the wall. And then after you go like 500 meters, if you've had enough wall, you can take a slide down to the bottom. Oh,
you mean like a zip line kind of slide? Or?
No, like a big... Like
a water park slide minus the water?
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah. So
I have not... This is on my list of things I have not done yet.
Okay.
You're already officially more cultured than me, and I've lived here a couple of years.
Okay, but here's the other thing.
All right.
So you take the slide or you climb down, whichever way you want to do it. When you get to the bottom, it is like a street that has little like shops on both sides selling, like tourist stuff.
Sure.
Skewers of mystery meat.
Right.
Fruit.
Yeah.
And it's all the same stuff over and over again.
Sure,
and different Chinese sellers screaming at you.
Right.
And then there are bears.
Bears?
bears.
Like raw bears?
Yes,
Okay.
like bears.
All right. Are they just like hanging out having tea, or are they in a cage, or?
Kind of both.
Yeah.
It is kind of the saddest zoo I've ever been to, because they've got these big like pit bear enclosures and trees for them, but it's outside and it's Beijing in the summer. It's like 1 billion degrees, and then there are these bears just hanging out waiting for people to throw food at them.
Oh man.
It is one of the saddest things. There's like 20 bears.
And are they? And there's all sad bears.
They're all sad bears. Just sweating to death. I don't know if bears sweat.
So we're sweating, and we've been sitting in a arctically cold apartment, and we turned the air off like 10 minutes ago, and we're sweating.
Yes, and so these are Chinese bears with fur sitting in these enclosures with all kinds of people staring at them. Every once in a while, somebody throws watermelon to them, which they eat gratefully.
Sure.
And there's like 3 different enclosures. There's a whole bunch of bears. And what's even crazier is that part of the park is called the Bear Paradise.
Somehow you don't think the bears were consulted on what their version of the afterlife would look like.
Bear Paradise. In fact, that's the first time when you get off the wall that you can go to a toilet.
Because I guess they didn't have plumbing up on the on the wall.
So on the right are these giant pits with bears in them, and on the left is a bathroom.
And if you have to go bad enough, I guess you have to. And there's a line. You have to consider what are the odds.
And in typical Chinese efficiency, every single urinal and every single toilet in that bathroom is labeled and numbered.
Right. So if there's a problem, they know which one to fix, and they can fill out a report.
And because, and this is great, and I appreciate it, because China has been really good about putting things in both Mandarin and English.
Right.
The labels for the toilets are in Mandarin and English.
Okay.
And so you'll go down the line and you'll see toilet 3 in Bear Paradise.
Oh, okay.
Toilet 4 in Bear Paradise.
All right, we have the full description.
Yes.
In case you're confused, this is
toilet number 6 in Bear Paradise. It's just
wow.
One of the weirdest things I ever saw.
So is that the 9th wonder of the world, maybe?
I don't know.
So I mean, I'm not asking you to be the Laowai spokesman for China knowledge, since you are really have just you look up to the task, of course.
I am prototypical white guy.
Nice. Well, so speaking of prototypical white guy,
I'm really not. I'm really not. Hey, everybody, I'm not really not.
You're not. What are you?
I don't know. I want to be an individual.
Are you unique and special snowflake?
Yes, we're all individuals.
Nice.
I'm not.
Hello.
Yeah.
So, back in LA, where people actually stand in line and pay money to see you do things like that. Tell me.
Once they do it once.
It's the first time for everything.
Yeah. Then they never come back.
So back in Los Angeles, let's zoom back to your regular life when you're not enjoying your little summer holiday here in China, which I'm very glad that you're having because I get to hang out with you. But what do you do when you're back home? What's your main pursuit? We know you teach, but what is your main pursuit kind of creatively?
Okay. Have you had guests from Los Angeles before?
A few, but I haven't had anybody as entertainment specific. It's been more people who are like business entrepreneur types.
Okay,
and I've had a few LA natives who left and did other stuff. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't had any actual. Yes, I've had 1 or 2 entertainment people from LA, but none of them are like still in LA.
Okay. There is a cliche that's absolutely true. When you ask somebody in the industry, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Their answer is always, well, I'm working on a script.
Sure.
Because everybody's working on a script, and we all are. So, yeah, when I'm home, I am home. Weird. When I'm in LA, I'm, teaching, but I'm also writing. I'm working on a couple TV ideas, and I, act when I can. When people hire me to act, that's always good. And I also do mostly improv comedy. So I've been working with a group for several years called the Captains of Industry.
I like that name of that group.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That we had a residency in North Hollywood for a while, but I've been in China for 5 weeks, so I don't know if we still have that or not.
Okay. Were you at the I.O.? Or?
We were at Acme, North Hollywood.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a good spot.
And I don't know how much your audience is familiar kind of with the comedy scene in LA.
There's about look, I've had a weird overlap with a lot of comedians. I have been on the show, a fair amount of comedians from here, a few people who've applied their trade elsewhere. The show is roughly 1/3 China, 1/3 US. which is heavy on California, and then about 1/3 everywhere else. And so most people are familiar-ish with entertainment stuff. That's a pretty common theme on here is entertainment stuff.
Yeah, in LA, for the longest time, there have been four major improv and sketch theaters. There's the Groundlings, which was the original one that a lot of the Saturday Night Live people come from. And then there's UCB, which is the recent one that kind of grew out of New York and is now in Los Angeles, and that's where some of the more recent comedians come from. And then there was IO West, which is for Improv Olympic, and that was kind of the Chicago style, and it had grown out of there. And then, depending on when it was and how popular it was, there were other ones like LA Comedy Sports or LA Theater Sports or different theaters, which doesn't matter to your audience. But the point is, things have changed quite a bit in LA in the past 6 to 8 months.
Okay, how so? Because I've been here, 2.5 years, so I'm out of touch with a lot of stuff.
UCB is still really big, and Groundlings is huge, and IO West closed.
Oh, okay. Well, so that's why my IO West thing was a non-starter, because they're not there.
Yeah, and you kind of made me think of it. There's just... it's
what's happening. Is it consolidation? Too much supply and not enough demand, or I can't see that in LA. I can see always wanting more.
Well, I mean, there's kind of a thing that happens in LA in that everybody is either in an improv group or doing stand up.
Sure.
And most improv groups and stand up is terrible.
Sure.
Which makes sense because everybody's doing it and you're practicing and whatever. So there's kind of an oversupply of it. But not being part of the IO community, I don't know exactly what happened. From what has been reported, it's just that IO Chicago never really thought of the LA branch as something that was useful.
Okay.
And they just couldn't afford to stay open anymore, so they closed. But so... essentially what that means for the three of you that are interested is that...
It's probably 5 or 6 at least.
Yeah, is that the comedy, especially the improv landscape, has changed significantly in Los Angeles, and I don't really know what's going to happen with it. And I've been working at the Groundlings, just going through classes and kind of relearning everything that I learned years ago. And it's been really great. It's... LA has a really great community, especially for sketch and improv, that is really kind of supportive. It's not the kind of... I think when I got to LA in the early 2000s, it was kind of more cutthroat and competitive.
Yeah.
And I think it's now more kind of supportive, let's do a show.
And that's the dynamic that I've seen a lot of. I mean, again, not to make it too much about me, but I mean, I moved to LA in July of 2002. Yeah. And I've been working already for years and years on the technical side of film, but I did creative stuff more as a kid and young adult. And I moved to focus more on writing, directing, and producing. So I wasn't moving to act or to do voiceover. Did a little voiceover and stuff. But you have friends who are in the same world. So, a lot of friends are actors, a lot of friends are comics, a lot of friends do improv. And, it seems like there was, what I heard before I moved was that it was like this super backbitey kind of environment. And there was certainly a little bit of that. But working on the behind the scenes side, I didn't experience that so much, because mostly it's really hard to make. It's hard to, what I tell people who ask me about producing movies is it's hard enough to make a bad movie. If you actually see a good movie or a good TV show, I mean, some people just they killed themselves and they caught a lucky wind and all these magical things happen. It's hard enough to do anything that's complete, that even if it's good or bad. So in terms of the performing side of things, I mean, you really ended up, you went to LA with the focus on the performing, it sounds like.
No, actually I didn't.
No?
I didn't. I went to LA kind of on the writing production side.
Okay.
Because by that point, for some reason, I convinced myself I was a terrible actor.
Okay.
And do you know why I decided that? No fucking reason at all. I just decided that.
Okay. Well, tell me. I made the wrong assumption about your end of it. So tell me, what was it like for you moving? Why you went to LA, thinking writing?
I wanted to get. I was mostly working on writing, and my plan was to try to get some sort of writing job, and then parlay that into something else.
Okay.
Because I'd had a few connections, and then maybe that was going to work out.
Sure.
But I think I'm sure you've experienced this, and I think a lot of other people have too. You have to eat.
Yeah, I like to at least once a day if I can.
Yeah. You have to eat. You have to pay rent.
Yeah.
And so getting to LA, a lot of my time early on was spent just trying to get jobs to pay rent.
Sure. I've had every crap job in the world between Atlanta and LA, where I
Yeah.
kind of had my formative years.
And so it was a lot of kind of like spinning out and not moving forward with anything career related. And just because I'd gone to film school and I'd learned how to edit, I ended up taking edit jobs because they pay.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. If you can edit, if you can do it at a fundamental level, you can find some work. And if you're actually pretty good at it and creative, then you can, you have a lot of options.
And honestly, with a lot of the jobs that I picked up, the editing, it wasn't so much about editing, it was about fixing their problems.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's a special skill set.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I like puzzles, so great. But I got to a point where I had to stop editing just because, and this is going to sound terrible, but I had to stop editing because the clients were driving me crazy.
Yeah. Well, that happens.
It just...
Yeah. In what ways?
Just clients, especially when you're working kind of on the commercial industrial side, which I was.
Yeah.
Clients don't know what they want. And
Yeah.
they don't know what they're talking about.
They know it when they see it. Great.
Great. But what that means is that I have to sit with them for 3 hours while they try to tell me how to edit.
Yeah.
It's like, if I had to sit through one more session where the client was saying, cut there, no, there, no, there, no, there. Why aren't you cutting it?
I'm having flashbacks now. Yeah, I have about 4 years of like local TV / industrial editing experience from Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always torture.
No.
And it was useful, and I bought a house, and it had a lot of upsides.
Yeah. And
But yeah, I just had a flashback when you did that. 'Cause I know that way too well.
If any of my former clients listen to this, you're not who I'm talking about.
It's never you.
But
you're the best. You're the best.
It would be one of those like, why? I want that other shot. This one? No. The other one. This one? No. The other one. This one? No. The other one. That was all the shots.
Yeah, it's like
there is no other one.
Yeah.
Or
the one I didn't shoot that I saw in my mind's eye.
Yeah. Or cut there, cut there, cut there. I haven't got the cut tool activated yet.
Yeah, I'm playing a clip. I'm playing one piece of video.
Yeah. So I did some editing for a while, and I picked up other teaching jobs like training and editing and directing and stuff like that. So it, I guess it was like 8 years ago, I was finally like, what I really want to do is I want to act again.
Okay.
And then...
What made you realize that?
I had the opportunity, I had 2 opportunities on one day where somebody called me and offered me an editing job where if I took them, I would be an editor for the rest of my life.
Because they were like big gigs.
Yeah, one was kind of cool. It was like for ESPN. And the other was editing a feature. And any editors in your audience are like, dude, what are you doing? Yeah. But I just, if I took those, I was going to be an editor forever. And I don't want to be an editor. I never did. So, I had a meltdown about that. I was like, well, what do I really want to do? And what I wanted to do was start acting again. Yeah. And so I did. And we started doing Captain's Industry, and like the second show we ever had, I had an agent come up to me and be like, do you have representation? I'd love to represent you. Wow. And I was like, this isn't supposed to be this easy. Maybe I'm okay at this.
That's great.
Yeah.
But was it that easy?
I mean, yeah and no. Yeah. I mean, it's any of you who are considering acting, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, and you hear this from anybody who's been in the trenches, most especially with acting. But yeah, writing, acting, if there's anything else you can do that will make you happy, do that other thing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I have been lucky and I've had some good jobs. Yeah, I've been unlucky and missed out on some things. I had some times that have been pretty bad just because the industry has changed. Yeah, and so who I am is not who they were looking for at the time. But just. If you are easily disappointed, yes. Do not become an actor.
You have to develop. You have to have a combination of, hopefully some talent. You have to have some talent. You have to have a huge amount of self-directed, self-motivated ambition. You have to have a certain amount of ability to disassociate from reality and tell yourself that something's going to work, even when there's no objective proof. Of that theory.
You have to have like an immense ego. You have to have some talent. You have to have the ability to work hard. You have to be super, super confident, and you have to be able to let go of everything that you just did. Yeah, because it doesn't matter. Like you go in and you do your audition, even if you do the best that you have ever done, it doesn't mean that you're going to get the job.
Right. So many factors. Because we have both taught so many students, and when I was teaching producing, like filmmaking stuff to actors, I was telling you before we started recording, that was actually my favorite, ended up being my very favorite class that I taught. And you're like, yeah, because it's all the filmmaking stuff in a nutshell. I'm like, yeah, exactly. And getting to tell that to people who are brand new, they haven't learned about a lot of bad habits yet, hopefully. Yeah. And they're usually like a sponge and they want to know everything. So I can give them like a little taste of everything. That was so much fun. That's the thing I missed the most from teaching. But the thing that I would always try to tell them is like, look, if you can, again, what I said earlier, if you can do anything else and be happy, do that thing. Yeah. Because, and so, yeah, any of these skills that I'm teaching you, these other things, acting or, directing or editing or writing, if you like doing the camera stuff, get hardcore into that. Like, pursue it, because you will always work, you'll always eat, and you won't have to worry about, did you wake up and you got a pimple in the wrong place? Yeah. And you got to go on camera. Yeah, and that sounds like a trite little thing, but that, like, people have, like, meltdowns over this stuff.
I have friends who aren't in the industry, and they'll ask me about auditions. They'll be like, oh, you had an audition today. Yeah. How'd that go? Oh, I think it went really great. Oh, do you think you're going to get it? I don't know. I stopped thinking about it. Because I can't.
Like, exactly. Well, that's the other thing they would say is, like, there's so many things besides, like, you could act the shit out of the thing. That cannot be acted better than I acted that. and you never know, because maybe it's a boy-girl scene, and I'm assuming you're going in for the boy, and for some reason you're great, but then the director, it's like you remind her of her ex-boyfriend who she hates.
Yep.
And you could be awesome.
Doesn't matter. But
you're done. There's no chance. There's no chance at all. It doesn't matter what you. So it's so not in your hands. The tiny little bit that this is why actors obsess over classes and prep and like these superstitions that actors develop. But that's again, I'm talking to like the 3 people now who care about that. It's my superpower is losing my audience as the show. Actually, people hang in there. I've got about a 97%.
Oh, well, let's see if we can ruin that.
Let's see if we can ruin that. Nice. Well, so look, we've actually even subtracting for some of the wretchedness on my part that we would have cut out by now. We've been rolling for a while. I do want to ask you a relatively serious question, although it could be fun, or it doesn't have to be taken, answered in a serious voice.
Okay,
you may have fun with that. I guess my question is this: like, what do you see as the state of things in terms of Los Angeles entertainment stuff? We won't get political, but it's not the funniest of times right now that we live in, and you're working in comedy, and it's already a tough industry. It's tough on it's hard on a good day. Yeah. And like people with other jobs, like it's hard. It's just hard in general to have an attitude toward optimism if you're in the U.S. But here's the big difference in China, bringing it back to the concept of my show. Something you and I were talking about in so many words, these were not the words, was that the feeling here is a little different, right? You've noticed this difference in the feeling. I think of it as this optimism because of the possibility. If you're young and Chinese and you're halfway on the ball, the world's your oyster, right? There's a very different feeling. What's it like? Maybe I don't want to make this like hashtag sad Igor, but what's it? but what's it like? But what's it like in LA right now, man? You're telling me tales, and I'm like, yeah.
It's a way more complicated question than it sounds like.
I know,
or maybe it's a way more complicated answer. It is an interesting time in LA.
Okay.
Because I think in terms of how the industry is working, we're starting to get to a place where voices that haven't been heard are getting heard.
Right.
And they're voices that we need to hear. And we should have been listening to the entire time.
Right.
And it's strange because the straight white guy has been the standard of Hollywood forever, since Hollywood was a thing.
Well, the publicly straight white guy.
Yes, exactly. But even when you're talking about who's making the movies,
right,
and who are the movies for, who's making TV and who's TV for, the standard forever has been straight white guys between the ages of 28 and 45.
Yeah.
And those have been the people who are in control. And so those are the people who write the stories. Those are people who make the stories. And in the past few years, we're getting to a point where that's not always true.
Right.
And we're so not there yet. I mean, if you look at kind of the recent statistics about who's making movies and who's writing movies, it doesn't in any way reflect the actual population of Los Angeles or even the United States as a whole. And to think that because somebody's not a straight white man, their stories aren't valuable is crazy.
Sure.
It's crazy. So we're starting to work towards that point, and it's a weird place for people to be. And there's a lot of uncertainty. Like there's certainly a school of people who are like, okay, well, this will all blow over and it'll go back to the way it was before. And then there's another group of people who are like, thank God this is finally happening. Let's fucking fix this.
Yep.
And so it is kind of a weird in-between time. And I think you see that in what the networks and what the major motion picture companies are doing. That there's certainly uncertainty, but there's also certainly a movement to the diversification of voice.
Right.
So what does that mean in terms of the Hollywood business, in terms of the world media business? I don't know. I mean, I'm not really in that world. I observe it from kind of an academic standpoint. It certainly seems that the trend in the media business is towards globalization. Mm-hmm. There aren't really American media companies anymore. There's multinational media companies. And, I think people in the United Kingdom would argue, but I think the American and the British film industries are essentially the same industry.
They're pretty thoroughly connected.
Yeah.
In many ways.
And so where you're going to get individual industries are going to be in countries and cultures that have different languages or just different cultural mores. So are there going to be co-productions between China and the U.S.? Yes, I think so. Mostly because Hollywood wants the Chinese money. But also because the Chinese government wants to expand their film industry and learn from Hollywood. So are there going to be co-productions there? Yes. Are those film industries ever going to merge? Never.
Nope.
Never.
Not going to happen.
And it's not even like a political thing. It's just the Chinese market is different.
Exactly.
And they want different things. And that's going to be true all over the world. Mm-hmm. That's why there's still an independent French film industry and why there's still an independent Italian film industry. And it's, I mean, this is me being a film nerd and having studied movies for all my life.
I've got a lot of film nerds listening.
But, I mean, I think it makes me really happy that that's happening.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I have had to work so hard through my life to see other perspectives.
Okay.
Like, because I'm an American in America, I have to work hard to go get those Italian movies and watch them.
Right.
Like, I don't see post-neorealism until after I'm out of college.
Okay.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't see French films until that same time either. So if we're moving into a time where that becomes more available, I think that's only good for all of us.
I think that's really well put. I am interested to see what happens here with this industry.
There is so much interesting and good filmmaking going on, especially in East Asia. And there's a lot that filmmakers around the world can learn from that. Mm-hmm. And I think it's good that we're finally getting to see it.
Agreed.
Yeah, and it's interesting because my Chinese students are totally aware of it.
Yeah.
Like, do you know any Chinese directors? Like, yeah, I know a few. Do you know Wong Kar-wai? I was like, yeah. Okay, well, who else do you know? It's like suddenly I'm on the spot.
Like you're being
yeah.
On trial here.
John Woo? No, it's like no. Yeah. So, but it's good because it's a different perspective, and from what I have studied and what I have seen, anytime you bring in a different perspective, a different technique, and you mix it in with what's already there, awesome stuff happens.
Agreed, man. Well, we went from kind of a freeform would-be comedy show to something fairly serious and real. But I like that. I like that. You actually really brightened this episode up. Thank you for being on the show, man.
Well, thank you for having me. It's generally how my life goes. It starts kind of amusing, gets serious, and then I leave.
Awesome. Thanks, man. All right, that's the show this week. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to find out more about Igor or myself or the show. You can visit the links in the show notes, which are always available at crazyingoodway.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.